findagrave.com is a useful database of cemetery records that can be used for biographical or genealogical research. The site contains millions of records of tombstones that have been supplied by users from all around the world. The resources on this site include individual memorials, cemetery searches, and famous grave searches. Because of the extensive data found on the site, other sites like Ancestry and MyHeritage draw upon information like birth and death dates, as well as calculated relationships and biographical data found on the site. Today I will be showing you how to do an individual grave resources search. But before that, I will point out some of the major features on this new and improved site. At the top of the page, you will find tabs for 3 different types of searches, including the individual memorial search, the cemetery search, and the famous grave search. There is also a contribution tab for those of you who wish to add to the site. Below is an On This Day feature which contains a recent famous death or a died on this day famous memorial. There are also more pages in case you wish to contribute. Additionally, there is also a tutorials button down here for additional. So for our first search, I'm going to look up Susan B. Anthony's No Help. So I'm going to put in her last name and her first name and the year she died, which I know exactly because she is famous enough, so it's 1906. And she died in New York. Generally, if you don't know this information, you should leave it blank. And we found our search. Here she is. This little star means that she's a famous memorial, and flowers mean people have acknowledged the grave, kind of like if you'd left them on a real grave. So we see her profile, we have her birth, her death, picture of her, because she's a famous person. They often include additional photos in addition to the grave photos, which we will find right here. So here's a picture of her grave, as well as her parents. There's links to her parents and siblings' graves. Note that these relationships are often calculated, which means that they might be inaccurate, especially with individuals that are not famous. So we can also click on the Read More button here and see more about her life. Because she's famous, this is a lot more filled out than you will see on other graves. We also know that she was buried in Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester, New York, and we can click on the Mount Hope Cemetery. So here you will see the cemetery page. It also gives us the location of the cemetery in Rochester, New York, as well as the option to look at it on a map. Additionally, there is also a list of famous memorials that are also in the same cemetery. Now let's go back to this main search and try someone that is not famous. For this search, I'm going to look up a woman named Viola Harrison. So I'm going to start by just putting in her name without any of the other modifiers, because we'll come back and look at these and see what we get. So compared to what I had for Susan B. Anthony, there are a lot of results here. We're going to need to narrow these down. Like any good search, we can go and refine the search. So now we're going to take advantage of some of these extra options that I didn't look at before with Susan B. Anthony. First, we have the options of before, exact, and after on the birth and death dates. I know that she died before 2000, so I'm going to put that in. I also know that she died in Vermont, so I'm going to put that information in here. Now, there's also several other options that I can include in this. I know she's not famous, so I'm not going to tick that box. She's not sponsored. I also know that this is her real name and not a nickname. If I was having trouble finding her, I could also include her maiden name in this search, if I thought Harrison was her maiden name. In this case, however, I know that it is her married name, so this option is not useful to me at this time. A partial name search could also work if I didn't know that her full name was Harrison, or I think there's an alternative spellings. This particular search is usually very sensitive to spelling errors, so if you're not sure on a spelling, it's sometimes good to truncate it and do a partial last name search and see if you can find the person. These last three options can also be useful because flowers can serve as a sort of endorsement of the work on that particular record, while grave photo and no grave photo can help differentiate between a complete record and only a partial record. For my purposes, I want one that has a grave photo, so I'm going to tick this box. So now I'm going to search and see if we can find her. And there she is. So looking at her profile, there is obviously less information than the Susan B. Anthony one, but we can still... Brown here is italicized because it is her maiden. Her birth and death dates are also shown here, just like with Susan B. Anthony's grave. Alright, well, I believe this is the end of our tutorial. I hope that you've learned to use Find a Grave Index.